Welcome back to the Rip Roaring Realtors Podcast. We are here with the man, the myth, the legend, Jimmy Burgess, straight out of beach properties of Florida.
Well done.
Thank you. Second time's the charm. Welcome, Jimmy. Thanks for making time to stop here on your way to beautiful Omaha.
Yes. Yeah. This is, hey, listen, I love being out here. This has been fun.
Yeah.
This is my 5th year here being out for this
Awesome.
event, and I've been out a few other times. And so, it was. I walked in through the airport this afternoon, and I was like, wow, it's like old home week. I feel like I'm here every couple months.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, glad to be with you guys.
Yeah, this is Burnell and I's second time here. We had to come back, and then we brought more.
That's right. That's great. That's great.
We brought more. So let's get down to some questions. Jimmy, give us your background. Like, tell us about your brokerage, everything you got going on in Florida.
Yeah. I started selling 30 years ago. I was very young, well over half my life. I joke I'm an SOB, son of broker. My mom was my broker, and my dad owned another company after they got divorced, so it's kind of crazy. So it's kind of all I knew, and I said, I'll never do that. And then here I am, 30 years later, after being in it. Sold for 25 years, shifted into the executive side, and have been the CEO for Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices Beach Properties in Florida now for 3 years now.
It's a mouthful.
Awesome.
Yes.
Yes.
Ours is too, though.
Yeah. So
Yes.
you're the son of a realtor as well.
Yes. Yes.
My dad has been in for like 37 years. And
Oh,
my
yeah.
stepmom,
Yeah.
and my stepsister. So
Yes.
I feel your pains and I feel your joys.
I know, it's exactly right. I know, yeah. No, it's been interesting, to see the changes over 30 years from the areas that I started selling in to what we're seeing now, the changes in the business, the advantages and the opportunities for buyers and sellers now that we didn't have because of the technology and the tools and the way that we can service in a better way. So, yeah, man, I've never been more excited about the business than I am today, as an agent as well as for the consumer.
So you came with a lot of enthusiasm. What are the biggest changes you're seeing this year towards the consumer? Like, what are the advantages and disadvantages you're seeing as we see a shift or a non-shift? Call it what you will.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in the business focus on, change being negative. And one of the things that I've seen with this NAR settlement, with everything that's going on is you have to understand that as a professional agent, I'm just going to speak from that perspective.
Yeah.
What I love is I love the fact that this is going to bring more transparency to the process for the consumer. As somebody that has always tried to go above and beyond, if you look up the biggest complaint that people have for real estate agents, if you just Google what's the biggest complaint people have, it's lack of communication. Well, what's happened now is now that we have this change here, whether it be on the buyer agency side or whatever it is, it gives us that opportunity now that the professional agents are absolutely going to stand out. This is why, as a consumer, it's going to be more important for you to find the person that's going to be able to communicate exactly what they do. Somebody that's going to be able to come in and show you how they're going to help you make the process smoother, get you a better price, and negotiate on your behalf. So to me, you hear all this in the news, and look, the news is built on negativity. But in reality, if we're focusing in on how we serve our clients better, there's so many things to get excited about in this, as long as you're the professional agent and you're willing to be the person who adds that value in a way and can communicate it.
You always have to remember that fear sells. So, the bad news, the negative, the big thing that's going to happen, the big crash, everything's going to go bad. That's what gets the most clicks. That's what gets the most ad revenue. So that's what they want to have out front.
I think Jimmy Burgess on your podcast gets the most clicks.
That's true.
Let me add to what you're talking about too, though. Fear does sell, but positivity buys. And so from that standpoint, what you have to understand is when we're looking at this from a perspective of us as agents, and especially for those that are consumers, now more than ever, it's important to find the agent that has a plan of action, that has a positive outlook, and that doesn't come in telling you everything that's possibly going to go wrong with this or that's changed in the negative, but somebody that is focused in on how this is going to help them serve you better. Because as a consumer, that's what we're all looking for.
Yeah.
As a buyer, I want somebody that I know that this is not going to be a situation where it's just going to be difficult. They have a plan of action. They have a positive outlook on exactly how we're going to make this work, and they're moving in that direction. So I think you're absolutely right, though.
We have to have that roadmap almost, for people. I feel like this, if anything, on the positive side of things, it's making us come more prepared with a more open vacancy to their requests and needs, right? I'm going to show up with more documentation. I'm going to show up with how I'm going to show my value to a consumer. Am I wrong?
Yes.
I mean, this is a time to make or break. People that falter or are unprepared for their listing presentations, their buying presentations, they are going to fall to the wayside of people who came ready and they're not afraid to take up a new challenge.
Absolutely. Yeah. And listen, I think the true professionals are going to be able to communicate it. They're going to be able to, and they're not going to just tell you, they're going to be able to show you. They're going to actually have some results that they can point back to. They're going to have those folks that they can let you call to see how the process went for them as far as their reviews or recommendations of things in the past clients that they've had that can tell you exactly how the situation went with them. So I just think as a consumer now more than ever, do your due diligence and find the right agent, because the value of a professional agent continues to be elevated as we continue to see the market change.
So Jimmy, what is your market doing right now?
Yeah, so we have always been considered kind of the leading indicator of real estate, because we are a second home market, we're a luxury market, and we're more of a want than need market. Mm-hmm. So what we've seen is over the last 2 years, we've seen our inventory go from an all-time low for me for 30 years in the business to now seeing it getting back to more normalized. So we've gone from, I'm going to just use one little specific area, we went from 122 houses was our low, I guess, as far as inventory, to now we're over 900 in that same market 2 years later.
Wow.
So we've seen a dramatic increase, which in reality we had skewed so far. We're really now back to a more normalized market.
Yeah.
More balanced.
So it's more balanced. And what it does is it creates opportunities for both sides. We had just, it was so seller driven that now we're seeing where, particular buyers, if they're patient and if they're looking for the right place, they're able to find something. It's one of those. We have some agents, they were just complaining about, well, there's too many houses now and sellers aren't being reasonable. But you have to understand, you can't complain about what you prayed for. We prayed for more inventory. Right. And here we are now. And we've got people that were complaining we didn't have enough inventory. Now they're complaining we got too much inventory. It's never going to be perfect.
Exactly.
So the time
it moves
really,
in mysterious ways.
it absolutely does. And every single time, if you are willing to make adjustments, creates opportunities. Mm-hmm. So it's really just figuring out, as a buyer or as a seller, exactly where you're positioned locally, because we hear all these national news, and that's why I'm glad you asked this question, because there's a huge difference between your local market and my local market.
Absolutely.
So what we have to do is find what it is and find the agent that understands that.
He's got Ferraris, we have horse and buggies.
So we're in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania.
Yes.
That is our market.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we are still very much a shortage.
But you got to understand, that's not the market. The market that we've got now at the beach is not the market I grew up in. You know what I mean? I was literally, I sold farmers' home houses. My average sales price, I think I look back in 1998, my brother and I, with his wife as our assistant, we did like 109 transactions, and our average sales price was like $69,000.
Wow.
So we were doing everything. Double wides. We were selling everything. So it was literally.
Don't bring up bubbles. They give my heart hurt.
So listen, I think that's why you got to be so particular, because you can go 30 miles north of our beach market, and it's a completely different market from our beach market. Mm-hmm. You can literally go 2 miles difference, and you've got a completely different market. So you have to get really hyper local on
I've
all
said
of
it
this.
before, I'll say it again. Real estate is so hyper local.
Yeah.
This neighborhood could be doing something completely different than the neighborhood down the street. It's so different.
So this is why
it's like a school district map.
Exactly.
Where we live, we have, you could go to this one school district that's 10 miles away, but the home values are lower, but their taxes are higher, vice versa.
Exactly.
There's just little manipulations. It's like microclimates.
It absolutely is, and that's why, if you're a buyer or seller, you need to have somebody. Because listen, everybody hears the national news and it's a headline, but it doesn't necessarily apply to that local market. So you need an agent that understands that local market, and make sure that you're comparing those two, because sometimes they can be working in different directions, and sometimes they can be coming together. So just understanding exactly, and it's not even just the local market, it's down to the neighborhood. We've got specific neighborhoods. We've got 3 specific neighborhoods that literally one of them is out of favor every 3 years. It's like, it's perceived value. So consequently, the buyer that is focusing on this neighborhood that's out of favor this year because it had all the sales last year, all of a sudden there is more opportunity there for that buyer, whereas this time next year it may have flipped over to the one that they just can't seem to find anything in. So I think it's really just critically important to understand those hyper local numbers and how they affect your client.
Definitely.
So,
like you said, you can't complain about what you prayed for.
no, that's true.
We're praying for it.
Yes.
We're ready.
Yes.
We need more inventory in Lancaster.
I love to see a more
I'm kind of
balanced
happy where
market.
I'm at.
I feel like in a balanced market, the professionals are going to stand out.
Yes.
When it's so hyper seller driven or buyer driven, like if it's a seller's market, the seller's agents don't really have to be that professional. They don't have to do a whole lot. The house is going to sell real quick for a high price. When it's balanced, you got to set your house apart as a listing agent. You need to make your listing stand out so that you can get that higher price for the consumer. So it's all. And
it is.
Yeah.
And one thing I would
And it
say
plays
is
out.
it always changes.
It always does.
And so
You're
as
right.
much as the pendulum swings this way, typically it swings back. So you
Yep.
have to understand, I mean, now I've been in this 30 years. I mean, I've seen this time and time again. And so if you are a buyer and it's a tight inventory and you're at a place where you're like, well, I'm just going to hold off, you know, interest rate, whatever you said.
Yeah.
Look at it now. Interest rates have come down. Look and find those specific things. Be ready when the opportunity comes because it can change
Yes.
like that.
Yes.
And the thing is what typically happens is if the hyperlocal agent is doing their job and they understand when changes begin to happen,
Yep.
they can get you out ahead of some of those changes and create those opportunities.
Definitely.
Just speaking historically, and we're seeing it in our market, what you have when you have that transition, which, listen, we're starting to see it across the country. It's just small, and so
Yeah.
it's just starting to show up. What you have then is you have a seller who wants the prices escalating at the same way they did a year ago, and you have buyers who want to buy at the price they assume it's going to be the next year. So you have this little gap area. We just went through this, over the last year and a half for us, where we have to understand what the market cycle that you're in. When you're in tight inventory as a buyer, you have to be prepared to be able to present that offer in a way that
Yep.
makes it stand out.
Absolutely.
If you're a seller and you have this market begin to slow down, you have to understand that you don't want to get caught chasing the market the wrong way or chasing the inventory the wrong way. So take advantage of the opportunities while you got them and be prepared for the change because it's coming. One way or the other,
Exactly.
no matter what
It's coming.
market you're in.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
and
The
again,
train keeps on a rolling.
It does all the time, every single time, And that's the thing is too, I mean, that's the thing that buyers and sellers both have to understand is that when you're never going to time the market. You're never going to be able to time the market. And the way that I've always heard it said, which is so critically important, is it's not a matter of timing the market, it's the amount of time in the market.
Yes.
So it's from that
Always.
standpoint that if you're a buyer and you're wondering, is the timing right now? It depends
it's
on
right for you.
If it rights for
Yeah.
you, it's always right if it's the right time for
Yep,
you. That's
exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
And it's long term. You got to think long term.
Danger rate, buy the house.
Yeah.
I've said that so much recently. It's so tacky.
I know.
So
It's like, it's not,
Yeah.
it's not
Don't
untrue.
say it
It's
anymore.
it sounds a little tacky,
Oh,
but
my interest rate's gonna be 6.5%.
Yeah.
Like, talk to my dad, like in the '83 when it was like 17%.
Yes.
That's-
Yeah.
And people still bought houses.
Yes.
And people are gonna
Yeah.
keep buying houses.
Yeah.
People always have to buy houses.
That's exactly
They
right.
always have to sell houses.
Yeah.
Well, I saw a statistic, which I don't know where it was from, what pool of people, but it was like 30% of the people are hung up on their rate. The other 70 are looking to do something no matter what the rate is.
Right.
So,
Yes.
and it's life changes. If you just had twins, like you're going to need a bigger house.
What about triplets? while
Doesn't
you're at it?
matter.
That's right.
Doesn't matter if you've got a 2% rate.
That's right.
You need a bigger house.
That's exactly
So,
right. Yeah, I know. Yeah. No,
It's all
I think you're absolutely right. I think it is, and sometimes we forget that these are real life situations. I mean,
Yes.
these are
Yep.
it's life is happening,
Yep.
irrelevant of what the market's doing. So we've just got to be able
Absolutely.
to adjust and make those changes.
Absolutely.
Yes.